Hi, my name is Dr. Claude Hungerford. In this semester, I have the distinct honor of being your facilitator for this course on leadership and teamwork. Leadership has been a topic of conversation and practice since the beginning of humanity. However, it's only been about the last 100 years or so that it's been considered an academic discipline. A cursory look at today's headlines will tell you that the world desperately needs quality leaders, and I feel privileged to explore the elements and application of leadership with you over the next 7 weeks. It's my hope that this semester you'll learn that this topic becomes not just academic, but it actually becomes something that you integrate into everything that you do into your life. So, what we are wanting to be able to do is to learn together how, with the understanding of leadership, how you can not only transform others that you work with in your workplace or your profession, but the world that is around you. So before we start our journey, probably, you might want to know a little bit about myself. Uh, Academically, I started college in 1978, so I guess that makes it official. I'm as old as a dinosaur, but I wasn't really concerned about business at that time. I was torn between whether to go into pastoral ministry or music, and I got a full ride scholarship in 1977 to the University of Montana. After about a year, I realized, boy, there are a lot of great people that are in the industry, and you got to be really on the road about 300 days a year to be able to make a living. So I thought, well, okay, let me go and take the ministerial path, which I did, and I attended Life Bible College at that time. And then in 1982, the recession hit, and I was a single guy, only making about $50 a week. Got married. About 6 months later, my wife and I had found out that we had our first child on the way, our daughter Jessica. And so recessions hit churches pretty bad as well too. So they were not able to honor what it is that they wanted to do to be able to continue to support us. So one day, after about several months of looking for employment, my mother came up with this great idea. Why don't you go into the Air Force? And I go like, that is the last thing I'll do. Well, about 4 months later, I find myself on an airplane. I'm on my way to San Antonio, Texas, headed to basic training. And so that really began a series of events from an educational perspective. So I ended up going into the Community College of the Air Force. And in 1996, I earned two associate degrees, one in avionics technology and one in instructional technology. And sort of to keep in line with sort of on the commercial side of the house to get certifications. 1976, I earned my FAA airframe mechanic certification and actually began teaching FAA courses at St. Philip's College here in San Antonio as an adjunct professor for about 13 years or so. 1988, I earned my FCC radio telephone certification, and then I started going into the business side of thing in 2007. I earned my Bachelor of Business Administration. I immediately went into an MBA in logistics and earned that in 2008. And then several years later, at about age 52, I decided, let's see what we can do here. And so ended up enrolling at Dallas Baptist University into the PhD in leadership program with a business concentration. In 2019, I graduated with that. So, given some of those past experiences in my academic experience, I'm just going to focus from a leadership aspect. So, as I mentioned, I went into pastoral ministry right around 1978 or 1979. Did that for about 3 years. And to be honest, that was really my first experience of what bad leadership and what good leadership can do for an organization. And 1983, as I said, I entered the Air Force after a few years of being a ground level technician as an avionics guy, ended up being a shop chief, went into quality assurance as a high level evaluator, and then eventually became a technical instructor teaching avionics systems. Ultimately, I ended up being the dean and the commandant of the Air Force Maintenance Management School out of its Major Command, Air Education and Training Command. Started doing that in 1999 and then ended up leaving that post in 2016. But in those years of being with a management school, I taught maintenance leaders how to effectively lead their organizations. What were the tools? What were the tactics? What were the elements of leadership to lead their organizations? But I also taught senior level commanders how to lead and manage their organizations with maintenance contracts with multinational corporations. These contracts oftentimes were 300 to $500 million. I ended up teaching a bit for the Department of Defense's Defense Acquisition University. And just before I left the service in 2016, I ended up developing leadership criteria on how to manage service contracts. Again, I entered pastoral ministry. My church that I was a part of ended up needing some help from a leadership and organizational perspective. And I did that from 2016 to 2024. This is where I developed church leaders, provided strategic planning initiative, oversaw the adult education aspect of the things that we did as a church, and also oversaw its global missions. And I had the distinct privilege of getting with really all the churches in the county here in Wilson County, Texas. And how do we come together with the local community leaders and the churches to be able to meet the needs of the community? And so, after doing that for about 8 years and being very successful in a lot of those initiatives, the Air Force called once again, and they were in dire need of someone to be able to deal with some problems that they're having in the F-35 program. Interestingly, this is with a multinational corporation, and it's estimated by the Government Accounting Office that over the lifetime of this aircraft, it's going to cost the American taxpayer $2 trillion. I know that's unfathomable, but that's where we're at. And only 500 billion is for purchasing the aircraft. And I say only 500 billion, but it puts it in a context. People need to learn, and they're trying to figure out how do we manage $1.5 trillion of contract services. So in this capacity, as a program manager for maintenance training requirements, I deal with the Navy, the Marines, and actually 17 other nations to include the UK, Australia, Israel, Japan, and working with a lot of other initiatives. But I'm also working with multinational corporations. So there are a lot of different types of experiences. The other experience I had, like I said, I was an adjunct professor at St. Philip's College in San Antonio. I've also, along the way over the years, established numerous nonprofit corporations. And on the side, when my day job doesn't keep me busy enough, I'm also an associate staff member on a global organization called Biblical Leadership for Excellence. And I'm also the Chief Operation Officer for the Lavernia Ministerial Alliance here in the San Antonio, Texas area. So, what does that all mean? How does that sort of come together in what we're going to be talking about? I've had about 48 years of working in multiple organizations and multiple roles. And one of the things I can tell you, we need better leaders more than ever. In fact, leaders have really become now more influenced by self-interest, gaining a power, influencing other people, rather than what's best for their organization and the key stakeholders and really the society in general. Current leadership, this is my contention, current leadership has become more confused on what its role is, and it's become really minimized to nothing more than glorified project management. You'll read stories of a CEO that's being hired by a corporation, and they're needing within 5 years or 10 years to carve out a larger portion of the market sector. They need to achieve, a particular objective or whatever it is. Is that really leadership? Or is that just goals management? Those are the things that we're going to be talking about. But one thing I can tell you this is that leadership done correctly has the ability to not only transform the people that work around you or the workforce or the organization or the corporation that you're part of, but it also has the ability to transform the community, the profession, a nation, and even the world. I can tell you that definitively because I did my doctoral dissertation on a gentleman named Charles Grant. Charles Grant was the CEO and director of the British East India Company from approximately 1793 to his death in 1823. And at the time, the British East India Company had become the most corrupt corporation in human history. And it probably still has that title up to that point in time. In fact, it was also known up even to this day, it was the world's largest corporation. In, in fact, it had so much financial influence that it contributed 18% to Britain's gross domestic national product. Whereas you may have a Walmart or another large corporation today, they may only contribute 1 to 2% to the US GDP. But one of the things that Grant did is he went in and he first started addressing the self-serving people. And he started putting things into place to be able to build new leaders that were coming in to equip them from an ethical perspective on what is right, what's right for the corporation, what is right for society, what is actually right for England, and because they were in India, what is fair and right for the Indian people. And in fact, a lot of the things that Charles Grant did were the foundational things that prepared India to become an independent nation some 120 years later. Grant also created the first civil service education corps. He's also known in India as the father of education. And he also was, from a missionary perspective, he was one of the first people from a corporation that sponsored missionaries into India. But his biggest concern was that missionaries would come in to help rather than proselytize. So he created an amazing filter on being able to do that. But in the things that he did, he not only transformed the British East India Company to then, at that time, at the end of his tenure, to one of the most respectable corporations in the world, but he also significantly influenced British Parliament, the British nation, and also England. And many of the things that he did today now are being studied by CEOs of multinational corporations and how to lead. So, as your facilitator in this journey on leadership, I encourage and expect you to be curiously diligent in exploring how quality leadership can not only transform where it is in your workplace today, but how quality leadership can also transform your community, your profession, and even around the world. Also, I encourage you, along with your curious diligence, that you continually check your course material or the expectations in your and keep these things in mind in your classroom discussions and postings. If at any time during the course you have a problem, you're needing clarification on something, something's not working right, please feel free to give me, uh, a call, drop me an email. I'm going to be available Monday through Friday from about 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. if you have any questions at all. Again, I'm looking forward so much to working with you guys and just sharing some of the things I've learned and as we go through this journey together. Thank you.